Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is where you're listening today. This is Maren Costa. I am the host of Unapologetically Maren, the Cornbread Chronicles. As you guys know, this is a mental health awareness podcast where I like to bring on guests and we do what we call storytelling lives. They will share their stories about mental health crisis, addiction, recovery, domestic abuse, overcoming and surviving cancer, all kinds of stories. But today we have a really amazing guest that I'm so honored and blessed to announce to you guys. His name is Brandon Willis, but if you follow him on TikTok, you'll know him as Cowboy Hat Brandon. He also has his own show he does on TikTok, The Unarmored Man, that shows on Mondays on TikTok, so you guys ought to check him out. Brandon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Maren. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to get you on the show. I've been wanting to have you spread your story for a while. I've been following you on TikTok for months now, and I've been to all your unarmored men, and I love what you're doing. I love what you guys are doing, and it's so important. So important.
I
So I'm going
appreciate
to
it.
give you the floor and just tell us about yourself and tell us about your story.
Well, I'm getting feedback over here that we're echoing really bad. I don't know
Oh,
if it's because my device being set up over here, but I've got the volume turned down.
let me make sure mine's muted. Is that any better?
Do remove background noise. There we go. Hopefully that'll help some.
All right.
But yeah, all's well. I'm up in Wyoming today. Um, I'm up here working, but for everybody that knows me, I'm a West Texas boy. West Texas is home to me, but I travel a lot for work. That's a lot of my content and stuff is related to my travels. And um, anyway, so it's just it's catching me this time of day on a Friday is definitely the exception. It's not the norm,
And
but
I'm
I'm
very
glad to
honored.
be here and appreciate the invite.
Yes, I'm so glad you accepted. So glad. So, start from the beginning. Give us a little bit about yourself and the story that you share with everyone.
Gotcha. Well, I started going live on TikTok back in October 2nd of last year of 2025. And it came about after I had a couple friends of mine convince me to share my story just by making some content. So I recorded 3 videos that talked about my health battles that I'd had back in 2020 to 2022. Is kind of what started it. So I recorded some content and posted it. The response I got from it was mind blowing to me. I thought I was like, man, if I got a couple people watching it, that would be
Still a couple of people
beyond
to hear
anything
your
I could have
story.
expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was new. I mean, I was new to TikTok. I didn't have a community built. I didn't have a platform really, so to speak. I'd only been on the app for a couple months, and I think I'd barely reached like 1,500 followers at the time whenever I had that. And most of
Well,
that, I mean, I don't know what I don't know what everybody's talking about. We're getting all kinds of comments about feedback and hearing a guy and a kid talking or something. I don't know. I don't hear any of it.
I have nobody here and I don't hear any of that. I'm
I
here
don't either.
alone.
I don't either. Um, anyhow, but it's one of those deals I didn't, it's been shocking to me to see what the community, how it's kind of come together, built my own community that overlaps with, a dozen other
Yeah,
creators that I've,
absolutely.
befriended and followed over the months. Um, but yeah, we're coming up. We just finished the 4th episode of The Unarmored Man, and it was in order to kind of create a space for other people to come in and talk about their life as well. So, um, the first episode was with Bankhead, with Chris Bankhead, and then Mike for the Win, and that was probably the hardest one. Um, those 2 guys had stories that just, I mean, they crushed my soul. like sitting there. We were on for like 3 hours and 44, 3 hours and 42, 44 minutes, something like that. And hearing those guys tell their stories really, I think it put things in perspective for me to really what the impact you have on people is, like how far reaching your impact can be, and what just some kind words and a smile or holding the door for somebody or just a kind gesture, what kind of a difference that can make to somebody, because you truly don't know what kind of battles people are facing in their day-to-day life.
Exactly.
So I think that really opened my eyes to, this was going to be like a trial, what that was going to be like a trial run, like let's try it and see how it goes. And that opened my eyes to the importance of having a space like this. So since then we've had three other guests on. They were all very impactful, very deep, very heavy in their own different ways. But the feedback from the feedback from the community that I've gotten off of this has been so overwhelmingly positive that I'm really, it's given me something to look forward to hit that live button on Mondays and have guests in.
And it's so
So
important that the unarmed man is, you always say, you leave your armor at the door. And for
mhm,
men talking about mental health, that's such a big, it's a stigma for men to talk about their feelings. And it's just something that we have to work so hard to break together because, like you said, you guys have some very important stories that need to be heard that could help so many other men and help more men want to keep opening up and sharing their stories. Because like Saturday tomorrow, I will also have Bankhead on the podcast, and I'm also having
mhm.
Mike for the win. So these stories just need to travel around, and you guys are so special, and that's why you found so many people following in your life. Is because of you, not just your story, but you as a person are just such a kind, genuine, true person. And I only know you from
I
TikTok
appreciate
world.
that. Well, what you see with me is what you get. I don't, and for me, this is a hobby.
Yeah,
I'm not a creator who's making a living off of TikTok. I'm not. I mean, I'm not even using it to supplement my income. Like, I don't even take a payout off TikTok. End up recirculating and gifting it and stuff. So it's not even a matter of the money for me. It's a matter of feeling like I have a purpose for hitting the button. Like, I have a reason to get on here for, other than to sit and just talk to the chat. And
right.
I've done that for months and I enjoy it, but I really wanted, like, I'd made up my mind, if I'm going to continue to do this, I'm going to do it with purpose. I'm going to do it with intention. And I want it to be something substantive that I feel like I'm getting a value for the time that I'm personally investing in doing this, because I mean, I have a career. I have a great job. I have a family. I have real life ambitions and goals and things that I'm working on myself that I want to accomplish. So if I'm going to do something that's going to take my time away from all of those other very important things to me,
Right.
I want it to be something that's fulfilling to me, and I want to make sure that it's something that other people are getting a value out of as well.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, go on.
my story, I don't know how deep you want to get into this, but the reason that I started this was, I've so the story that I've got to tell is multifaceted. I have a very, I would say, uninteresting, compared to some people in the stories that I've heard on here. I have a very uninteresting childhood. I don't have a bunch of traumatic stuff. I don't have any abuse. I don't have any SA. I don't come from a drug addicted or alcohol addicted family. I had a very normal
Mhm.
upbringing, I guess you would
Bless.
say. Um, Absolutely. Yeah. Blessed on my end for sure. So I don't have any of that to talk about. But from there, um, I came up. and decided I didn't want to follow in my dad's footsteps in the oil and gas industry. Decided that I was going to be the first man in 5 generations in my family to go into the military. So made the decision to enlist in the Marine Corps. Um, Honestly, if you would have asked me early on, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to make a career out of this. But that didn't work out. End up with a back injury.
Mm.
And so, whenever I signed up, I think I had it envisioned that it would go a certain way. Right. And I ended up not being able to accomplish anything that I set out thinking that I might accomplish while I was in. Like I genuinely had this sense that I wanted to serve my country.
Right.
So fell short there, ended up going into law enforcement instead. Um, I That was probably the most rewarding job, fulfilling job I've ever had. Thoroughly enjoyed it, but there's a reason they put the "po" in police, as I like to say, because it doesn't pay worth a flip. So I ended up stumbling into some other opportunities. I ended up doing some government contracting, private government contract positions and stuff. Ended up going to Afghanistan several times. I've been to
Uh,
Afghanistan a total of 6 times.
Thank you for your
Um,
service. I'm a
yeah, I mean, like I said, that
military
was a
wife,
contractor
so
role. Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, just full disclosure, that was not in a military capacity; it was in a contractor capacity. But
yeah.
we were working hand in hand and
Um,
side by side with them.
mhm.
But and often doing the jobs that they didn't want to do.
Right.
but But anyway, ended up working my way into the oil and gas industry, right, following directly in my dad's footsteps. And, so I've travel and long, hard work hours and things like that have been a part of my career from early on. Um, I've traveled all over the world. I've been to 43 out of 50 states and 24 different countries. I've literally followed this career all over the globe. And anyway, but it like I said, the travel part of it has been a big part. So I share a lot of my stories and stuff about traveling. But what really got me into wanting to share my story with others was in 2020. I was in what I would say was I was in my peak physical condition that I'd ever been in my life. I was eating healthy. I was working out 6 days a week. I was, you know, 6'1", 235 pounds of solid muscle and in great shape, working out, running, lifting all the time. And I had never been sick a day in my life. I never had anything more severe than a sinus infection. So never spent any time in the hospital, um, other than broken bone, some stitches. That was it. That was it. But April of 2020, I started noticing some digestive health issues, which turned into really it complicated every aspect of life, from being able to work a full day to um, keeping up with my workouts and home life, traveling. Any of that was just it was hard to it was just hard to function. Um, yeah, I don't know what's up with the audio. Yeah, all kind of
Yeah, I
comments on
just saw
that, but
that too. I can't. Let's see. Hold on one second.
let me try moving further away.
See. Did that work, you guys? Kristen? And that we don't hear a kid talking. That is so weird.
Mm-mm. There's nobody here but me. I don't have any idea what that is.
Okay, Kristen said that's better.
Okay,
I did something different on my side too. Okay, keep going.
gotcha. All right, but anyway, April of 2020, I started noticing some major health issues. Started investigating that. Had a And I was 42 years old at the time. Actually 41 at the time, because this was April of 2020. So ended up going in, got a colonoscopy, found out that I had ulcerative colitis, and they began, some treatment options and stuff. I'm not gonna start labeling, naming medications and stuff. I got a violation for that on TT
Oh
already whenever I first started this. But
no.
um, anyway, so come September, they tried like three different treatment options, none of which worked very well at all. It didn't work at all. In fact, I was continuing to digress in health. So by September, I actually was starting to really, really drop weight. I was dropping weight really fast. Um, and then November 7th, I was admitted in the hospital in Lubbock.
Mm.
At that point, I was already down 30 pounds. And they tried, a few more different medications and treatment options and stuff. They had consulted with doctors at hospitals all over the country, trying to find somebody who had run into a case like this before that was baffling them. So nothing was working, through all kinds of different treatment options that included chemo. Um,
Wow.
I I had wasted away to pretty much nothing, and I had a doctor who actually came into the hospital that at one point came in for the nightly rounds at shift change, and he said that he said we've tried everything that we know to do. We've exhausted all of our options. He said at this point, I don't believe you're going to leave this hospital alive.
Mm.
So
Like bringing up hospice type of situation.
they they had not put me on hospice yet, but they had moved me to managed care in the
Managed.
hospital. So they'd put me on a self-administering, I'm not going to say the medication name, but it's the one that starts with a D,
Yeah, yeah.
to where I could just hit the button every 15 minutes, and it was just managing pain. Um, a surgeon from so I was at Covenant in Lubbock at this point, and a surgeon from Texas Tech from UMC right across the road had heard about my case through one of my nurses that was taking care of me. Like, my doctor had just given up. The doctor had given up, and he's like, "You're just not going to leave this hospital alive. I've tried everything I know to do," and he was okay with that, I guess. I thankfully I had a couple of really, really awesome nurses, and you'll hear me dote on anybody in my community that's a nurse. You'll
Yeah.
hear me dote on them all the time, because I'm alive because of a couple of really, really awesome
Heroes and
nurses.
scrubs.
Absolutely. But anyway, one of them had reached out to Dr. Kidwell, who turned out to be my surgeon, that with the life saving procedure that is the reason I'm here today, and the grace of God. But she reached out to him, got him involved, and he actually had like a bilateral contract with UMC and Covenant where he could work at both and perform surgery at both. So he came in to see me on a Friday night, and he was actually in the room whenever the nurses were coming in for shift change, and said, the nurses were there, the charge nurse was there, and the hospitalist, the doctor on the floor, um, the doctor that was working the floor that night actually came in, and she said, um, "You need." She said, "You need to make peace with God and your family. I don't think you're going to be here tomorrow morning. Your blood work is really, really bad." Anyway, when it went into all the detail, but she just said, "I don't think you're going to make it till tomorrow morning." Well, Dr. Kidwell was in the room at shift change, and he was just kind of standing back, and he was quiet, didn't say anything at the moment. But when everybody cleared out, the nurses kind of made their notes and stuff on the white marker board, and meds and dosage times and all that good stuff. he pulled up the visitor's chair, and my wife at the time was in the room with me, and she was like, I'm laying in the bed, she's sitting in the chair right over here to my left. He pulls up a visitor's chair from like the foot of the bed and slides it up. He says, "Mind if I have a seat?" Like, knock yourself out,
Yeah.
bro. Um, he introduced himself and he said, "I'm here because I think I can help you." And he started explaining the option of surgery that would be um, that would end up impacting me permanently, for the rest of my life. He explained the process. It was a total colectomy. Um, it took out my colon. Anyway, he diagrammed it. He went up to the nurse's whiteboard and just erased everything and took a
Yeah.
marker, and he started diagramming the human body and the digestive system, and he's going through the whole thing and explaining all of it to me, and it was more informative and put me more at peace than anybody or anything had done the entire time I'd been in the hospital, because this guy came in, he told me, he's like, "This is going to be hard, it's risky because the state of your body right now," he said, "if one thing goes wrong, one thing," he said, "you won't make it." He said, "You don't have," he said, "I have no room for error." He said, "You don't have the ability to sustain life if you go septic." He's like, "If anything happens and your colon ruptures, or if I nick something just wrong," he said, "you don't have the ability to fight anything right now." He said, "So I'm telling you that this is going to be very difficult." He said, "But I've done, I forget how many of these cases," he said, how many of those surgeries he had performed. It was a bunch. But anyway, he said, "And I've so far," he said, "I've never had anything go wrong." you know, So anyway, he explained it all to me, and he said, "I need to have your answer by tomorrow so I can get you on the board for surgery Monday morning." And I'm like, "It's Friday night, and I just had a doctor tell me that I'm not going to make it till tomorrow morning. What do you mean Monday?" He
Yeah.
said, he said, he said, "I've seen your most recent CT scans." He said, "I could almost read a newspaper through the wall and lining of your colon." He said, "It's bad. It's dire." He said, "But if you take care of yourself, don't stress yourself out, lay here, be still, relax." He said, "They're going to try to get you to get up and walk." He said, "Don't do it." He said, "Just sit still, relax, watch TV." And this is in the peak of, this is late 2020. This is in the
Oh,
peak of the Rona and all the stuff,
yes.
so everybody's
Wow.
walking around with masks, and, it's just like, I hadn't seen my kids in a month at that point. I was allowed one visitor per day, period. And nobody under 18 was allowed. So, you know, and I think my wife would have fought a grizzly bear at that
Oh,
point in
yeah.
our life to say, "No, it's not you today. Sorry, it's me."
It's me.
But, so we were managing through all kinds of different fronts of this deal, with managing not being able to see family, not being able to see the kids, dealing with the health consequences and stuff. And the kids, I didn't want them to see me like that anyway. I didn't want that to be the last thing they saw if that was the case.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I did, and I forced myself that night off of pain meds. I refused. Like, I'm not taking this anymore. If it's going to make me sleepy and I'm going to fall, I didn't sleep at all Friday night. I did not. I wouldn't close my eyes. I wouldn't let myself fall asleep. Made it through Friday night. Made it through Saturday day, and they came in and told me that I had to do blood transfusions. So I did blood transfusions Saturday night. I did another Sunday in order to just get my blood to a point, because it was so diluted. I'd been on an IV for a month. I'd been fed through a PIC line. I hadn't had a single bite of food or a drop of water. They wouldn't let me have anything. Um, so Sunday night came around. Dr. Kidwell came in, the surgeon. He came by to make sure that I was still comfortable with everything. He explained it. told us what was going on, what to expect. He said the surgery is going to take 4 to 4.5 hours. He said we'll take him back to the OR about 6 a.m. Get him prep, telling my wife all this. I couldn't talk through all of this stuff. Like I really couldn't talk. I could make noise. I could like grumble a little bit, but my throat
Yeah.
was so dry. My tongue looked like a prune from not being able to drink.
Never drink. Yeah.
And anyway, so he kind of filled us in and told us what all to expect. Well, Monday morning rolls around, they come get me, take me back to OR. I remember them making the marks on me where they were going to cut, where the incisions would be. And he told me, he said, best case, he's like, I'll be able to do this laparoscopically. So we'll have one incision that's going to be 2 to 2.5 inches long. You'll have multiple incisions from the laparoscopic procedure and stuff on your sides. He said, if everything goes well, if it doesn't, I'm going to have to cut you from your belly button to your top of your ribs.
Oh.
So I woke up with a scar that long. Needless to say, surgery didn't go as well as they thought that it could have. But anyway, surgery lasted 9 hours, just shy of 9 hours, like 8 hours and 50 something minutes. And the only update my wife got at the time was at like the 4 hour mark. They just came out to the waiting room and told her I was still in surgery. They didn't have an update, had some complications.
I bet she was
So
freaking out inside.
everybody was, because all my
Yeah.
family, like none of my family except for my stepdaughters at the time lived in Lubbock. Everybody else was from across the state or out of state, but I had family in from Houston, Beaumont, from Northeast Texas, from San Angelo. Everybody had come to Lubbock and they were staying at our house. And so anyway, so everybody was freaking out. Everybody's blowing her up, wanting updates and stuff. Like any news was like, no, obviously I'll tell you when I find out. But I got to read all of this stuff later.
Right. Right.
Um, anyway, but at 9 hours, whenever they came out and finally told her, he made it, he's out of surgery, she collapsed. She was just overstressed,
Overwhelmed
anxious,
and
everything hit, and
overjoyed,
it was finally
anxious,
like,
everything. Yeah.
okay. So nothing went as planned, but anyway, ended up with a total colectomy. They gave me I had a permanent ileostomy. If anybody's familiar with that, most people know what a colostomy is. They know what a colostomy bag is, and ileostomy is just your small intestine. I don't have a large intestine at all anymore. So they set that up. Because of that, I ended up having to have a couple more major surgeries to kind of finalize that whole process and remove everything else and finish it all up. So um, after the last surgery, they told me, you'll have to come back every 6 months for the first couple of years and get a CT scan to get a checkup, for us to make sure that everything is still attached properly, still functioning properly, everything looks good internally. Um, so I went back in April of 2022 for a checkup, and they found a spot on my right kidney, completely unrelated to the checkup, but during the radiology found the spot on my right kidney. Ended up, a couple more, doctor appointments and stuff. Scheduled a biopsy, this, that, and the other. Ended up finding out that it was kidney cancer. I had clear cell renal carcinoma. Ended up with come September, they finally did surgery in September when they were kind of evaluating to see how fast it was growing, what it was looking like before they did anything, and making sure that it wasn't something that was just benign. But um, anyway, made the decision to go ahead and just do surgery because it would be so much cleaner and simpler, more straightforward than having to do, you know, conventional treatments and all the stuff for chemo and radiation and meds and all that stuff.
Right.
So I got about 20% of my right kidney cut out in September of 22. And then after that, everything has been nice and clear up until late last year. In mid 23, I started having some really bad headaches. I was at the gym one day working out and got really dizzy, and then my vision just went black. I never lost consciousness. I could hear, I could feel, I was aware of everything around me, but my vision just went black, and I ended up tripping and fell headfirst into the wall at the gym and knocked myself out. So they loaded me up on an ambulance, sent me to the hospital. Got there, they did an MRI on me, and then found a spot on the right side of my brain, and it's just like white matter, whatever. So the doctor went through all of this stuff, asking all the questions and everything. He said, "Well, looking at it, he said you got 5 surrounding lesions." He said it's indicative of MS, of multiple sclerosis. I was like, "What? What is that?" I didn't even know what it
Like,
was.
how much more can I
So
take? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I got the explanation of all that. He's like, "There's a lot more testing to be done before we can diagnose that." Lumbar puncture and blood work and all the things. So they went through all of that and it came back negative. So I've just got this spot on my brain. So he starts asking me all these questions. He's like, "You ever had a concussion or TBI?" Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I got my stuff rocked pretty good a couple times in
Right.
Afghanistan, and in law enforcement and all this stuff. I've had a few. He's like, "Okay, well maybe that's all it is." Well, fast forward, the headaches, migraines, and stuff continued to progress and get worse. Well, late last year, October last year, actually, I went in to get checked and everything for the migraines and to see if there was anything that they could put me on. Well, they saw the spot on my head again too. They ordered another MRI, compared it to the one from 2023. It had progressed. It had changed, significant change. So then they did one on my neck and spine and all this stuff, and there's like all these identifying factors, whatnot. So, and then all the other tests that go with it, and they finally, like by November, they come back and said, "Yeah, you have what's called RRMS, is relapsing and remitting MS." They said if you're going to get it, that's the best. That's the best option, because it
Okay.
comes in.
Take
It
it.
just kind of comes in these cycles. It comes in these flare ups, kind of more or less. So, as far as the ulcerative colitis stuff and the ileostomy, all that's great now. I've gotten used to it. I've got that stuff pretty well figured out. I've had no further issues with cancer. No, I keep up with my doctor visits and my checkups and stuff. So now it's just kind of figuring out, what changes or how do you navigate with stuff with MS. But so far, like, it's not impacting me on a daily basis. It's not something that impacts my daily life. But what I have found through all of this is the one that seems to be the factor that sticks out the most, that's the most impactful to life, is having the ostomy.
Yeah.
And there is just this distinct lack of information out there, especially for men. Um, if you go do your research and everything on, I mean, you just go do a web search on it, and if you find good information on it, it's always a woman talking about it. It's always women that are willing to get out there, expose their
Right.
vulnerabilities, and
Yeah.
talk about stuff like this, not men. So that was kind of the beginning of my story last year. Was, having a friend of mine who's a live host. He convinced me. He's like, "Dude, you need to tell your story." He's like, "I promise you, there are people out there who need to hear this." He said, "If for nothing else, for inspiration."
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
what got it started was he asked about this tattoo on my forearm. It's a semicolon, says "never quit."
Yeah.
And I told him the story about, having 2 different doctors tell me that I wouldn't leave that hospital alive. One of them was like, "You won't make it till daylight tomorrow." And this stubborn, hard headed will to survive, and a complete unwillingness to accept failure. I mean, and that's in my personal professional life, but I'm stubborn.
Me too.
I'm stubborn. Like,
Stubborn
I
too.
mean,
It's a Texas thing too. We stubborn.
some of that, yeah, a lot of that, a lot of it has to do with, the way you're raised
Yeah.
and upbringing and things like that. But part of it is just, I'm just stubborn. It's just personality trait. It's paid off, and it's paid me dividends in life for being as headstrong and stubborn as I am. And it's also caused me my fair share of difficulties in life. Don't
Right,
get me
right,
wrong.
right, right.
But so I got to considering that, every time I've ever looked for information on this, there's not a man out there talking about it. So I recorded some content. Um, I put 3 videos out there, and they blew up. They took off. Like, for me, for having 1,500 followers at the time, whenever
Yeah.
I put these out there, if even that, um, I looked up and had 75,000 views on one, 56,000 on one, 25,000 on the other, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm
People want to hear what I have to
blown
say.
up,
Yeah.
and so, but the messages, the direct messages, the comments on the videos and stuff started pouring in, and I started reading them, and I promise you, I read every one of them, every single one of them, and one of the contacts that I made out of it, and one of the it has turned out to be a friendship, was my guest from Monday night was Sean Anderson.
Hmm.
Sean, at the time when I put those out, Sean had just undergone the same surgery that I had,
Yeah. I
um,
heard his story
because
Monday.
he had. Hang on, I got a puzzle.
Make sure I got
But he had colon cancer. Sean had colon cancer. So, but he had undergone the exact same surgery, the same process, same end result, ended up with the same bag, same everything. So he came in whenever he came into the comments and started telling me about his stuff. And then whenever I started going live, he's been with me from, like, he's one of the day one guys.
Yeah.
And then he ended up being my guest on Unarmored Man this past Monday night, and he came on and he shared his story and
Yes, I
and
was
talked
there.
about, the impact it's had on his life, the impact it's had on his mental health, the impact it's had on his faith, his relationship with his wife and kids, and it's to see that anything that I could do, it did what I said I wanted to do. If I can just help one person, if whatever I do, if it helps one person, that's worth it to me. And knowing, I mean, and Sean tells me on the regular how much, just having somebody to listen to, or somebody to talk to, or
Oh,
somebody to relate to, or whatever, how much it's helped. And that makes me, that's all the gratification for it I ever need.
yeah.
So there's been numerous others. I had one, was a 21-year-old kid. I mean, this guy was into competitive bodybuilding and weightlifting and all this stuff all throughout school and in college, and then found out he had UC, and now he's battling it. Like, he's going through it. It's changed his body. It's changed the way he sees himself. And, we've exchanged a bunch of messages and stuff on here too. And I've given him a little bit of advice I've got to offer, but, um, the mental health aspect of it is really where it has fallen into a whole other category that, I started out, whenever I was looking for it, I wasn't looking for anybody on like that mental health space. What I was
Mhm.
looking for was just like, how do people deal with this when they travel? Or
Yeah.
how do you deal with it when you fly? Or how do you deal with it whenever you go camping or whatever? Because these are all things that are a huge part
Yeah.
of
These
of
parts of
my
your
life.
life that you love to do.
Yeah. So I travel all the time. I'm literally, I travel 80 to 90% of the time. Um, Year before last, I was back and forth traveling to the Middle East. I was on 13 to 15 hour long flights. Um, Now, home is West Texas. I'm working in Wyoming, so I've got a 12-hour drive from doorstep to doorstep.
Yeah.
And So that's the things that I started out looking whenever I realized there was this distinct lack of information out there. There was a lack of any kind of information out there from a guy's perspective. And that's what got me talking about it. So once I got past that and getting into some of the conversations and the comments with other people, I started realizing like this, okay, I'm not the only one whose mental health this has affected. I just don't talk about it
Right.
to anybody. And I glanced over here just a minute ago, and I don't know if he's still in there or not. Let me look. No, like oh, there he is, Walt, right there. So you see, Tex Walt over there in the chat. Walter's a really good friend of mine. We've been friends for years. We've been hunting buddies. He's known me long before all of this stuff happened,
Yeah.
and it's he's one of the people who actually knows the real story of like how mental health related to all of this stuff really impacted my life and how it changed me drastically for a long time, and it took me a long time to get back to being who I really am. But I'll be perfectly honest and vulnerable with everybody right here, and I'll tell you right now, in 2022, right before I found out that I had kidney cancer, I let this and the self image that it gave me and the self consciousness of the changes to my body and everything, it got to me to the point to where I didn't think there was any way even my own wife could look at me and find me attractive. I didn't think that anybody would want to hang out with somebody that's got a bag on them. Not nobody's gonna want to be. I had all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said this to me.
No.
Nobody ever said anything
And we're
negative to
never
me. I
thinking that.
never
It's
got
all in our
one.
heads. Yeah, it's our
I
own
never got
thoughts.
one. I never got one negative comment from anybody. Not a friend, not a family member, nothing but positivity and support. But it was me. Like I told you in 2020 when all this first started, like I was in the best physical shape of my life. Like I was a beast, and I was proud of it. I could go to the beach, I could go to the pool, I could go to the gym, whatever. I was one of the
I'm
biggest dudes in
proud.
the
Yeah.
room, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for any other thing except for I liked the way that I looked and I liked the way that I felt, and it was for me. It wasn't for
Yeah.
anybody else.
Right.
So when that changed me, I got to a point where, God, this is probably the hardest one of anything that I've ever done or gone through to talk about because it's impacted my life in the worst ways. I let outside validation. I let somebody from the outside, their validation of me, I let that impact my marriage. I stepped outside of my marriage and had an affair with somebody who complimented me and went out of their way, it felt like, to try to.
In the moment, it just made you feel good about
I,
yourself when you were struggling so hard.
yeah, but let me tell you where letting your mental health go down that rabbit hole will take you. It will ruin a marriage. It will damage somewhat. Some of it will be irreparable damage to the relationship with your kids, especially my daughters.
Yeah.
It will cost you friendships. It will cost you your integrity. It will cost you your reputation. It will cost you your mental health to a point where it's worse than it was before that ever happened. The guilt of it, the negative self-image that it gives yourself, that is not it's one of those deals where it's one of those things that I unequivocally do not recommend anybody ever go down that path. I don't care what your situation is. Fix the situation, get out of the situation or whatever before you go down a path like that, because once you cross that bridge, there is no going back. You can't take it back. And it's one of those deals that hindsight, I know all the ways that I should have handled things differently, but like I said, it's one of those situations to where if you don't keep a check on your own sanity, your own mental well-being, your own mental health, have a buddy to talk to. And Walt was that guy for me. Like he and I spent more time out in the desert, literally in the middle of the desert in West Texas, out coyote hunting and bobcat, and I mean, we hunted a lot, and but we'd get out there, and it was just I would be so glad to just be somewhere else besides sitting in a room by myself in my own thoughts, that whenever I got out there, I'd get so caught up in the moment. So I didn't want to talk about all of this. I didn't want to bring that
Right.
crap up. I was just enjoying
Right.
the moment. He just said many nights together in the middle of nowhere, and that's no exaggeration. None. I mean, if you know where Pecos, Texas is, going
Hmm.
west and northwest from Pecos another hour and a half, and that's where we were. I mean, we were in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere. But it just got to a point like that to where even though I knew that I was struggling with my own the way I saw myself, my own mental self image, um, I wouldn't talk about it because I didn't think anybody could understand it because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know another human being who had had the same kind of surgery that I had or gone through the same situation. So um, it really caused me to think that there was nobody that I could relate to. So there was nobody I needed to talk to about it. So anyway, that's one of a dozen different examples that I've got that I could share, but that one definitely is the most impactful. Um, I think another one too would be that I just noticed these patterns where I would just kind of withdraw. I would self
Yep.
isolate, and I wouldn't pick up the phone and call and talk to family. If they called me, I'd answer, I'd talk. But yeah, Walt mentioned it, he said, but you've also been through more trauma earlier in life before that, even,
Right.
and don't want to share too much because I don't know how much you've shared.
Yeah.
But
And what you
going
had to
back past
understand,
that,
yeah, what
yeah,
you have to understand
no,
is
and
that we all feel mental health differently. That even though
hmm
we're not, let's say for me, example, I've never had cancer. I'm not going through any of the same things you've been through. Because of the things I've been through, I felt the same way. No one's going to understand me. People are going to think, like, if I told the real things going on in my head and that I was thinking, I'm like, people are going to think I'm crazy, and I'm supposed to be this HR director, this professional woman. I can't be saying how I felt. You just don't think people can relate, and they can. Maybe not
hmm
specifically to your specific situation, but the feelings are the same, and that's why talking about it helps so many people on a linear level. Like, just your voice and words help so many people, even if their
yeah.
experiences aren't yours specifically.
Well, and Walt alluding to stuff from the past too. Early on career in law enforcement, I was in
Mhm.
two officer involved shootings. Um, of course, Afghanistan. I mean, just a lot. There was a lot of other stuff there too, and it came especially from a period in life where you're surrounded by a bunch of men who, the biggest thing is like, you could have your you could have your leg hanging halfway off, got blown, get blown up by an IED or something. Your leg's hanging halfway off, and you got a Navy corpsman or a doc or whatever, green doc over here telling you, "I'll change your socks and take two ibuprofen. You'll be all right."
Right, right,
Rub some dirt on it, walk it off.
right, right.
That kind of mentality. So it's you got different stuff like that. I remember a situation over there. I mean, it is March 18th of 2010. I can tell you every detail about that day except for maybe 10 minutes of it, where it was just like I don't know if it's adrenaline. I don't know what causes it. You know, you get these moments where it's just like there's just a part of this time like I know what everybody else told me happened, but I don't remember it.
Right.
I don't remember it. And we lost a guy. Ended up having to bring him back on a helicopter ride. He literally saved six of us.
Wow.
I mean, he's definitely why
My
I'm
hero. Yeah.
I'm here and not 6 feet in the dirt from that particular day. Um, I've got a picture of me walking onto the base at Bagram that day. Um, the whole left side of my uniform's just stained with his blood. That's a day I'll never forget. Um, I got called to an accident when I was in law enforcement. A mom and her two small children, one and I think four. I think they were 1 and 4. Um, foggy morning, East Texas, had a broke down 18 wheeler on the side of the highway, and she rear ended it in the fog, and her van, little minivan, caught on fire, and all three of them passed in the fire, and
Mhm.
having to remove them, and having to tell the husband and dad I gave that notification. Um, I can't stand to burn a steak on the grill after that.
Mhm.
Um, a drunk driver hit a 15 passenger van carrying a high school girls volleyball team. Um, me and the highway patrol sergeant and captain had to make 5 death notifications that night of kids who had their whole life ahead of them. So aside from just health, aside from health issues and stuff, there's a lot. There's some deep rooted stuff there that it just comes from a place and time in life that is drastically different than where we are today.
Right.
Today is so much different with the amount of social media, the amount of open access to information, the ability to get on a teleconference, a telehealth conference with a
Mhm.
counselor,
Yep.
or a doctor or whatever the case. Um, you don't even have to go see somebody in person now. You can do it over a screen just like
Yeah.
this.
Exactly.
And
I see my counselor
you know
personally.
the yeah, there just wasn't the access to stuff like this back then.
Right.
And I say all of this, I mean, I, I say this to my kids and they laugh. Like, I graduated high school in the 1900s. You know, I'm older than Google, kids. Um, but they don't. And I had them fact check me. They got on Google to fact check me. but I mean, things like that. Having the ability to talk to somebody, to seek help, to just even if it's just have somebody listen to you, the ability to access that information is here today where it wasn't years ago. And I think that really a shift in the mindset in general of the population, not just men, women too,
Right.
because I can remember a time when women would have looked down on men for having conversations like this. Like, look at this weak dude. But I'm at a point in life where I really don't care.
Right.
I don't
I
care what
think it's
anybody thinks
attractive.
about it.
My husband is open like this too, and I think sensitivity is attractive, especially when they're macho men at the same time. That's the best combo.
So But for me, it's more of just like don't get me wrong, I can be 100%, I can be a hard ass if I need to be. I can flip that switch on and I can turn it back off.
Right.
But in general, in general, on the day to day, what you see right here is what you get out of me. I am laid back. I'm easy to get along with. I'm easy to talk to. I'm pretty level headed and got a good head on my shoulders.
Got a
But,
puzzle.
you know, I think like anybody else, I may have my flare up in traffic or something, but,
Come on,
but,
pup.
anyway, that's just, kind of a nutshell how I look at things and how times have changed and the ability to have people in a space like this and share a screen sometimes is easier for people, even though there's so much less privacy with it, people feel more comfortable with it. I'll
Right.
never understand that part of it. Like if you're going to sit down with a doctor face to face, it's you and the doctor in a closed room and closed door and the anonymity and doctor patient privilege and all the
Right.
things. But you find that people would rather find somebody they relate to and feel like they can trust and talk to and open up to and sit
Absolutely.
here and share a screen to hundreds of people, thousands of
Absolutely.
people. So anyway, that's just, I mean, that's kind of me in a nutshell. It's who I
Yeah.
am. It's what I'm here for. It's what I'm about on this platform. It's why I've stayed on TikTok as long as I have. As the Monday night series has kind of been that last thing that I found
Which I
to give me the
love. I've been to
motivation to
every
keep
one of
hitting the
them.
button. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the support.
And you're such a strong person. I don't even think you realize how strong you are. Like, one thing I caught on to is when you were talking about when you were in the hospital, and they told you the surgery was going to be Monday, and the other doctor said, you're not going to make it past tomorrow. And you dug in your heels, and I would have, I would have just melted away. My mental health would have taken over. I would have been not knowing what to do, miserable, just totally not being strong for myself in the moment where I needed to fight. You were fighting for yourself, and that is amazing quality. You're so strong and such a fighter. You're such a warrior. And now you get to tell this story, and you're going to continue to tell your story and help so many men and women. Strong man, Brandon.
Well, thank you.
Well, I thank you so much for agreeing to come on today. And it was a blast talking. Um, I'm going to end up on the podcast, and then we can turn to TikTok just for a little while. And then I got to jump to another one. But you guys,
Okay.
thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting Brandon. You can find him on TikTok. He's Cowboy Hat Brandon, and we will see you on the next one.